Okay.
All right.
Oh, we're live, Josh. You can't put it live. I put it live. You got to let me know,
Mike,
man.
Chris said, he said that
Good job, Josh. I'm proud of you.
I could have
Somebody
said a bad
taking
word.
the damn reins around this place.
Like, fuck.
We know who the captain isn't, right? And sidetracked by 20-something.
All right.
I don't think you're understanding of the situation.
Oh, I understand the situation.
No, I don't think you do understand the situation. Zach, does he understand the situation?
I understand the situation.
I don't know if he understands the situation.
I don't think he does.
Zach.
The two people that were there telling you that you don't understand the situation. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that you do not have an understanding of the situation that you think you do. Just like you don't think Jordan Travis is an above average ACC quarterback. Woo!
He is.
In every single metric that you can possibly imagine. But some people don't believe in metrics. So
Kenny Pickett. Devin Leary.
Devin Leary has a worse passer rating than Jordan Travis, but go on. You can count him if you want.
Which one are you taking as an actual quarterback?
Are we counting running the football as his skill?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No. Okay, well,
never mind. You go die on your hill.
All right.
I'm proud of Jordan Travis. I appreciate the work he's done. He's a gamer.
Wait, can I rename myself?
Yeah, Zach.
Hell yeah. I can rename you too. Do you have a little edit? See your little function on the bottom there, your little face? There's little dots, the letters that are going vertically. You go to that, edit name.
As a member of the second online internet war, Zach, you can do whatever you want.
Oh, J-Rod, before we get going here, asks, mailbag, is the U back? No. All right. We're going to get this show going. How you doing, Josh?
Yeah, we ready?
Yep.
Wait, there's one more question really important. Buyer Sonone. The U is back. Sonone in it! Bakesale Boys 31. Manny.
You ready?
Hell yeah, I've been ready.
I want to know if Josh is firing an entire athletic department again on this podcast.
Who did I fire?
You fired the AD and the coach at Miami on Sunday night or Saturday night. I'm sorry.
They have to. Well, I mean,
no,
I know
they're
going to do that.
I get
that's the move. And
but I asked about coach, and you're like, get rid of that AD.
Well, you asked about because you had mentioned Mario Cristobal, and I think the only way that they can get Mario is if they made wholesale changes from the top down. But then I got to thinking about it, and it's like, how are you going to find? There's 2 weeks left in the season. You have to make a hire before early signing day. How are you going to make an AD hire and then a coaching hire? So I don't think it's Blake James.
It's a weird time of year. Yeah, it's a weird time of year for an AD change too. That's more of a midsummer night's dream.
So while I'm not disagreeing that Manny could still be fired,
what about
I don't think it's going to be the wholesale changes of the AD going and Manny. Therefore, I don't think Mario will be into play. So if Mario's not into play, who you fired Manny for then? You see what I'm saying? It kind of it's like
Buyer Sonone, you can trust someone named Blake James.
You can't trust anybody with two first names. I mean, that's rule number
That's what I'm saying. That's a Sonone. I just Blake James.
Well, I feel like his name should have been James Blake, and they just got confused.
I always say James Blake because of the tennis. I always want to say James Blake because of the tennis star. Just used to hearing his name. Anyway, all right. Let's get this thing rolling. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
I got it. All right. Whew. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to On the Bench. I am your host, Josh Newberg, and I've got Brendan Sonone, Zach Blostein, and Chris Nee here with us. It's Monday morning. We are feeling good, and we are here to do our regular rewatch recap. But I also want to share with you guys a massive amount of recruiting intel. We've been working the phones. Zach's been sitting on the bench. Brendan made an appearance on the bench. We have a ton of recruiting information to share. There will also be a recruiting scoop posted on Noles 24/7 around midday today. So be sure to check the site. But before we get into it, Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, Josh.
Hello. Brendan, how you doing?
Dandy. Hello.
Zach, are you on the bench or are you at home?
I'm at home.
Wow.
You need a different bench. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, guys, and welcome to everybody watching on YouTube, everybody listening on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We have been basking in the glory of FSU's 31-28 win over Miami this weekend. What a game. I've been a little bit too busy to rewatch it. Luckily, you guys have. But first, can I talk some recruiting? Is that cool if I do that?
Hell yeah.
Give the people what they want.
Yes. All right. I think Mike Norvell's gamble to host a big recruiting weekend against Miami paid off. The Noles brought in 9 official visitors and dozens of other big-time unofficial visitors from the 22, 23, 24 classes. They were all inside Doak Campbell Stadium to watch that game. They were engaged the whole time. AJ Duffy posted some video that we post on Noles 24/7 in the moments after the game of him and Travis celebrating, the whole stadium doing the chop. I mean, it was an environment that if you try to write it up before the weekend, this is what you would want. Everybody was there. Everybody was engaged. And after the game, the recruits were actually led down into the locker room to celebrate FSU's victory with the players and coaches. That doesn't happen when they lose. Even in a game against Notre Dame, the players did not get into the locker room after the game. It's not something that happens at FSU. This is pretty standard across the country. Victories, open locker room, they lose, it's closed. Recruits just don't get that experience for those type of games. So, Zach, I'll bring you in here. You were out there on the bench. We're going to dive into some of these individual recruitments later, but what was just the general feel of this weekend for you?
Yeah, I mean, Saturday was pretty lively. Chris and I were kind of at the legacy walk because they take the recruits there to let them watch the players walk in, Coach Norvell, all the other coaches. So that was pretty cool. We got to see a lot of the recruits there. And then, more guys started trickling in before game time. Every home game this year, they have a kind of a little setup inside the IPF where they have all the recruits at. I think they have like barbecue and stuff before the game that recruits can eat. Most of the guys showed up. The official visitors were sprinkled into that group, and it was just good vibes all the way until game time. And then obviously the game went how it went. Pretty much, all of the guys that we spoke to on yesterday just raved about, the atmosphere, the environment, especially in that fourth quarter, that last drive. Just, a lot of the recruits were talking about how impressive it was for the fans to stay in the game, despite, FSU going down 8 points late in the game like that. And they stuck it out until the end. So, definitely great reviews and recaps with a lot of the recruits that I spoke to on Sunday. And I think FSU made major moves with a lot of those guys.
And there were, as I said, 9 official visitors on campus. We were expecting 7. Heading into the weekend, we were expecting 7. And on Saturday morning, news broke on Noles 24/7 of 2 more official visits being added to the weekend. And they were both transfer prospects. Really interesting. Lamar offensive tackle Bless Harris and Wisconsin center Caden Lyles. They both made it in on official visits. Now, Caden Lyles is a guy that I know Florida State had been recruiting for at least a week, maybe more. And Bless Harris was a new name on the radar completely. Florida State ended up getting 1 commitment so far. I think they will get more. But they got 1 commitment so far out of this weekend, and we'll talk about that before we get into the rewatch. It was Bless Harris. Bless Harris is a Lamar transfer, Lamar University. He's transferring. I believe he's a graduate transfer with at least 1 year, possibly 2 years of eligibility remaining. He went to St. Augustine High School, and that is where running backs coach David Johnson used to coach. So that's kind of the connection. That's where it started. But then bringing him in on campus, his bond with Alex Atkins and the players, it got him to flip. Now he flipped to UCF. Zach, Bless Harris committed to UCF, like a week ago?
Yeah, or it doesn't say the exact date on our website, but I'm pretty sure it was like a couple weeks ago.
So how do you feel about his commitment to Florida State? Do we think he's going to end up signing with the Noles?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a final decision. He's got a couple of weeks until he signs, then he's expected to enroll in January. So, I mean, the cool thing when talking to him, he kind of, we asked him did he know he was going to flip on this weekend? He's like, I wasn't really sure. And I said, was there like a specific point in the, on the visit that you were like, all right, I'm going to commit? And he said basically that last drive was what kind of, made it happen. That he's like, crazy. This is where I'm going to be. So, yeah, I think I'm going to post like another article with all the quotes that he gave us in that video I posted. There's an extended version, and I'll transcribe it after we get all these other recruiting updates up.
Okay, good. And Chris, does Bless Harris come in and fill the role Javonte Love-Taylor currently holds at FSU? How do you see him fitting?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, he told you that he expected to come in as an offensive tackle. I think this is as much about adding depth and versatility than anything. So does he step right into the DLT spot? I don't know. But could he be there? Sure, certainly. But I think this is more about FSU wanting to get away from being in the pickle of really only having 5 to 7 at most offensive linemen at any given moment. They're adding a guy like Bless Harris, the Lyles kid that we'll talk about from the Wisconsin transfer that they're pursuing. That's another example. He's certainly coming in, if he was to end up here, to push a guy like Maurice Smith to compete for that spot. But I don't want to just earmark Bless Harris as a guarantee. Yeah, he's filling that DLT spot. I think it's a little bit more about depth and competition than just finding an instantaneous plug-and-play starter.
Dare I say he raises the floor. All right. Lyles did not commit. He's the other transfer prospect that was on campus. He left Sunday. We're still trying to reach him for comment, but I've spoken to multiple sources, and I do not expect a decision to come anytime soon. I think he's going to take 2 more visits, and those are likely to be to Texas and Missouri before he makes a decision. But I do think he makes a decision sometime in December because he's going to enroll at a new school in January. The connection with Lyles actually comes from Kenny Dillingham when he was out in Arizona coaching high school football. Lyles and his brother played at Saguaro High School, and Dillingham used to, I don't know if he was like a QB coach or tutor or something or mentor, but he used to help out the family on Sundays and watch Lyles' older brother throw. And while Dillingham was always out there, the younger Lyles, Caden, who is now a grad transfer from Wisconsin, was always around, always hanging out. So I'm told that Dillingham really knows the family well, has a long-standing relationship with Caden Lyles himself. We'll see how this plays out. I'm also told that Dylan Gibbons is playing a big role in this one. As you know, if you listen to Big Man, Big Heart, Dylan Gibbons is planning to return to the team next year. So he is actually recruiting Lyles and telling him like, hey, come play beside me. You and I, you playing center, me playing guard. We're going to really solidify this offensive line for next year and try to make a run. So we'll see what happens there, but I am feeling pretty good about FSU's chances coming out of this visit. And like I said, I don't think he's going to make a decision for a couple weeks, but I do think it'll be sometime in December. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we will try to get him on the phone here in the next couple weeks.
Do you guys go ahead, Chris. I was going to ask him about the offensive line recruiting in general, but go ahead.
I was going to throw 2 things in there. Lyle's brother that you referenced, the quarterback, apparently is currently at Jackson State University. I believe he used to be at Southern Illinois. And then Brockmeyer, who works for 24/7, Blake Brockmeyer, father of the Brockmeyers in college football currently, he did a little something on Bless Harris. I'm just going to read the blurb he shared. I kind of agree with the scouting report. I think Seminoles will as well from what he watched of Harris. Harris plays with an aggressive and nasty demeanor, is a finisher at the second level. He has good feet in pass pro and the athleticism you want, but will need to refine his hand placement, punch, and techniques, as there will be a huge talent jump for him in the ACC. He gets collapsed in the pocket some in pass pro and will need to learn to anchor better, but does a good job snatching his opponents versus power rush. He would project him as an offensive guard or possibly a right tackle at Florida State. One other thing I would add from watching a little bit of film, plays a bit high. He'll have to correct that. I think he will with Alex Atkins.
Who gave that report, Chris?
That was I believe it's Blake Brockmeyer. I keep mixing up which Brockmeyer. He's the father of Tommy Brockmeyer, and I forget the other son's name. I think they're both at Bama, if I remember correctly. His dad's a scout for 24/7. He does stuff for us. He was also an All-American offensive tackle at Texas back in the day. and a first-round NFL draft pick. So he knows a little bit about what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah, we'll get him to come on the pod sometime and talk a little trench play. But yeah, no, I agree with that on Bless, that he shows some nice athleticism. We'll see how that translates over to the jump from going to FCS to Power 5. But to me, it seems as much a depth move as anything. Someone who is going to obviously have the potential to come in and start, but at the very least, like if you lose Robert Scott or Darius Washington at any point in a game, it's not this massive like drop off, which is what we've seen this season. When FSU loses a starting offensive lineman, the depth is really shaky. And that's what I want to ask you guys. Josh, do you like the FSU seemingly being more aggressive, less picky, being assertive and finding someone in the transfer portal at offensive line, like early in the process, rather than kind of waiting and see what happens like they did this past one?
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of after the commit happened. We got the news out and everything, and I was just kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, this is good. This is proactive. I'm not saying I don't think Florida State reached for somebody that they just wanted to get in just to get a guy in early. I think that they understood what happened last year. They understood the need to not only get offensive linemen, but get them in before the spring. Like, it's okay if you bring in a Dylan Gibbons in June. He's made a major impact. He's Florida State's best offensive lineman. But ideally, if you're really going to solidify this offensive line and make it into something special, you want to get these guys in for the spring. And that's what you're going to have with Bless Harris. Chris watched the video. There's other guys, he played at Lamar. So there's obviously, he needs to get up to speed. He not only needs to get up to speed technique-wise, but just practicing with Florida State caliber players. Going up against Florida State's defensive line is going to be incredibly different than it was when he was at Lamar. So he gets that acclimation period in the spring. I love the pickup. I love the urgency. I just love everything that's going on right now with Florida State offensive line recruiting, especially the fact that, and I'm going to kind of jump ahead of here, but Woody was on campus this weekend. Antavious Woody, a prospect that has been flirting with Auburn for weeks now, I think we all have flip picks in for him to Auburn, right, because it looked like it was imminent about 5 weeks ago. And now Florida State is very much in control of his recruitment, it seems. Zach, you and I talked about that this morning before the show, but what did you see? What did it tell you seeing Antavious Woody on campus?
Yeah, I mean, just him being there was the most important thing. He was one of the commits that didn't come to the Notre Dame game. So that was kind of worrisome. And that's why I think Auburn was able to make a push in those following weeks, because they kept getting him on campus. He doesn't live far from Auburn. I think it's like 45 minutes to an hour away from Lafayette, however you want to pronounce it. But so he came down for the game. He seemed like he really enjoyed himself. I got like his reaction for the recruit reaction story that we posted. And, it was just like it was a great game, great win. So, I like where FSU stands with him. I think they have a good shot to keep him in this class. Obviously, these next couple of weeks are going to be vital, making sure that he stays solid. But I really think that this visit solidified things even more with him and FSU.
Yeah, a consistent theme with him and talking to people at FSU was he needs to show up. So he showed up. So obviously quite important. Next big thing probably to watch with him is, one, does he decide to sign early? That's immensely important. You don't want to have to keep fighting the battle for another 2 months. And also, does he show up to the Iron Bowl? Because he has previously said he probably would show up to that. I think maybe even potentially as an official visit.
All right. Now, we still got a ton of recruiting to cover, including Marvin Jones Jr., the five-star offensive tackle that took an official visit to FSU, some of the other prospects that were on campus. But I want to get back into the rewatch since we're about 10 minutes into the podcast and we haven't talked any team football yet. Brendan, can we work backwards here? Can we dissect the final 3 drives of the game first?
Oh, we're going to Tarantino it. Real quick before people start yelling at you, Marvin Jones Jr., defensive end, not offensive tackle. I know you know that, but people
I called him, I had the 5-star offensive tackle on my mind.
Understandable. And I know you know who Marvin Jones Jr. is. Just trying to protect you from the meanies.
Well, I said Marvin Jones Jr. and then I meant like and the 5-star tackle.
Okay, well, you know what? It's all clarified. We don't need to get bogged down here. That's my fault. So yeah, let's talk about the final 3 drives. I want to get Chris's thoughts too as we have rewatched the game. Let's go to that second to last offensive drive where FSU kind of milks the clock and steadily moves the ball down the field. I'll start off with the 4th down call, the fake quarterback sneak where they move Wyatt Rector over and motion him behind the center as if he's going to take a QB sneak, and then they direct snap it to J-Trav. That's on 4th and 1, I believe. And FSU gets it. It could have been more of Jayshon Corbin. Sets the edge there and gets the block, but you get the 1 yard that you needed. What I love about that play, and we saw it in practices this past week, I was like, that may actually work. It forces Miami to pinch down as they anticipate the quarterback sneak. FSU put that on film a year ago. That was against Pittsburgh, I believe, where they ran very similar concept where Wyatt Rector goes and pretends to be the quarterback, or actually it becomes the quarterback and takes the ball as a sneak and scores a touchdown. Pitt and Miami run a very similar attacking defensive scheme up front. So you expect them to be aggressive, to pepper the gaps and attack in that moment. And so it's just a really good play call to keep that drive going. And later on, J-Trav makes a really good throw in a muddy pocket to Pokey Wilson on a comeback pattern. Ultimately, FSU's drive stalls, and they attempt a 29-yard field goal with 4:43 left. Some fans, you could hear them booing in the stands. Chris, at the time, did you think that was the right call?
It created discomfort because there wasn't necessarily a belief the defense would get it back, plus the concerns about the clock getting into the latter part of the game, the amount of time you would have, the ability to then get it back and score. But yeah, I think you have to kick the field goal there. You have to take points. For FSU, when they're making decisions of, do we punt or go for it on 4th down? Do we kick? A lot of times it's, can we actually convert what we have in front of us? And I think they try to make the best decision they can with regards to that. And those decisions are always magnified. When they work, it's great. When they don't work, it's awful. But that's the business. But no, I thought it was the right call.
I tend to agree. And yeah, I think that was a moment of I don't think there was a right or wrong call. They were playing results at that point. I think even probably statistically, you could probably make a case for each one having its pros and cons at that moment in the game.
One other thing I would add is, do we really want it to be FSU having to kick a field goal for the win at the very end? Are we comfortable with that versus a field goal with a little bit of comfort and time, with the fact that field goal kicking has been very, wishy-washy up and down at times this year?
Yeah, and we saw that against Notre Dame in the opener. When you put that on the line, there's some discomfort there. So FSU makes a field goal, gets Miami the ball back with about 4 minutes and change. FSU has 2 timeouts, I believe. And FSU's defense had just surrendered 3 touchdown drives in a row. Some of that was fluky, like Miami hits on a couple plays and has concepts with the running backs getting or slot wide receiver getting isolated with your linebackers inside, but then there's a fluky touchdown catch off the deflected pass 2 drives before. And I don't know. I think we get bogged down on the most important result to base them off of is what just happened previously. That's true in most facets of life. And there's this other factor too, though, that Miami scored 3 drives in a row. Okay, so that's fine. They're not going to probably, statistically, aren't going to score a 4th time in a row. So again, you're relying on your defense to kind of get some things figured out, make some plays in space. Miami picks up a 1st down on the first play from scrimmage, but then the defense really bows up and tackles well in space. Miami tried to play it kind of conservatively by going to the perimeter. The 3rd down and 4 play where Murray and Cooper help stand up the play that goes to Will Mallory, the tight end outside, and then Jermaine Johnson, the level of effort that he has to fly from the opposite side of the field, take a correct angle, the awareness and the technique that he plays with is amazing. And then the hustle, the energy to get there, and then to finish off the tackle emphatically, authoritatively to stop the big 245-pound tight end in his tracks. Man, hell of a play. So FSU gets a pretty quick it's not a 3 now, it's a 4 and out, I guess, because Miami got it first on the first play. So FSU gets the ball back. It's a punt that goes into the end zone. It's a touchback. FSU probably doesn't need to let the ball bounce there, but whatever, that's fine. So FSU gets the ball back with about 2 minutes on the 20. Chris, the first play there, I love it. You take a shot to Ja'Kai Douglas. You're expecting man. It's a fade in a slot fade pattern that's worked for you before earlier this season. What's going through your mind when they hit that shot play there for 59 yards?
Well, you see it developing down the visitor sideline with Douglas and his man tight end coverage, and then Douglas and him kind of come together, and Douglas departs from him and separates quickly right as the ball is coming in. Hell of a throw by Jordan Travis. It's almost like he's improved as a passer.
No,
that one's for you, Seminoles. I just wanted to let you have that one.
Thank you. No, you're right,
it
Josh.
connects.
You did throw him over.
59 yards later,
pass.
the field is flipped. FSU's knocking on the red zone, and when FSU gets in the red zone currently in this stretch of play, they're money. I think they're 25 for 25 after converting that one. So it's pretty damn impressive, and I love it. I love that FSU is not a passing offense. We all know this. It's run-based, all of that stuff. When they had to have it, they knew a shot they could go with, and they went with it, and they converted it, and it's what they do. And they converted a hell of a lot of shots in this game. They were chunk play heavy in this game, especially in the passing game. So, no.
And Jordan was 4 for 8 on passes of 15 yards or more downfield. One of those was the drop by Jordan Young, but probably could have been PI there as well. Could have really been. Jordan was really sharp with the shots they took. And that's, if you're going to win as an underdog, like that's something they weren't able to do consistently against Clemson. They were able to do it against Miami. That's how you win as an underdog, is you hit your chop plays at about a 50% clip. That's how you do it. The 4th and 14 play, though, let's get into that. So Andrew Parchment, Chris, I don't think I'm talking out of school here. Chris was about done with Andrew Parchment after the miscommunication.
Oh, no, I was done. You're not talking out of school. I was done. When he miscommunication, quit on a route earlier in the game. I mean, I've not been in a happy camp with him since the end of the Clemson game with how he acted on that final play where he kind of opted out of it. And there's obviously build up to that moment too. But yeah, I was done with him. But hey, redemption's a beautiful, beautiful story. So good for the kid.
Josh, what's going through your mind when you see that? So it's 4th down and 14, and Jordan gets a clean pocket, he delivers it, and then you see who catches the football though. Like, are you freaking out in that moment?
It was redemption Saturday. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like I said, I thought the only way I thought the game was going to end that would have been more suited was if Jarvis Brownlee had an interception as time went out. These guys, it just shows you the mentality of the team. They don't quit. They don't get down. They might make mistakes over and over and over that drive us crazy, but they're going to get back out there and they're going to go with confidence and they're going to try to make a play in the moment. And Andrew Parchment, for what he's lacked all season, came up with the biggest play of the season on 4th and 14. That number, 4th and 14, will go down in FSU lore. We'll be saying that for 10 years to Miami fans when we're talking trash. It's just unbelievable. It was just one of those moments.
It's like D-Rob at UF.
Sorry, if people are listening to this, Zach tried to point to the 4th and 14 emblem on his screen and missing it. Unmute yourself real quick, Zach. You're a Broward boy. Bayer Sonone. That's a top 5 moment for you watching FSU football in your young life. Yeah,
for sure.
So you gotta say bye then.
I remember being in the stadium for the Muff against Miami. And, losing my mind on that. The D-Rob play at UF, I always think back to, and obviously the PK play too there is another one you can think back to. Dunn turning the corner is another example. There's moments. They don't go away. It's awesome.
Now, do you think another moment in that one, do you think that we're going to see that incredible run? Or was it a screen pass by Rooster where he bounced off Brownlee and goes for the touchdown?
It was like an arrow pattern. It wasn't a screen.
I mean, I could see the Sean
35
Taylor
yards, if I remember correctly,
and the PK Sam hit, or the Roscoe Parrish hit over the middle, the PK Sam hit by Sean Taylor. Like, I can see that play also going down is a big replay that we're going to see over and over. I thought it was a classic game. I mean, this was one of probably the best FSU Miami games in quite some time. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because FSU won this one, or maybe I am. Who knows?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was close. It was competitive, and the teams were hitting too. Like, that's what I love too, especially Florida State in that first half. And
that's what I meant by classic game.
Yeah,
when a key dead lined up and whacked somebody, I'm like, we're here to play football.
Yeah, it felt like a rivalry game. That when you hit someone, there was a little extra juice to it.
Miami had a tight end that FSU couldn't stop. I mean, this felt like the 90s, the 2000s.
South Florida boys for FSU showed up. O'Marion Cooper, first start, played his backside off. Brownlee, up and down game, had some horrible moments, had some great moments, but that guy's effort in that game, unquestionably impressive. Keir Thomas, damn good opposite of Jermaine. Jermaine's not from South Florida, but if he wants to be, he's allowed to be. He was unbelievable in that game. It was fun. I mean, Minnesota's basically South Florida, isn't it? No, I mean, FSU had a lot of guys show up. Andrew Parchment, another South Florida kid. It's been a long time since that's been home, but yeah.
And then the game comes down to we play 4 quarters of football, and the game comes down to who can win a 6-inch space of green.
Gotta love it.
for the next 365 days of talking trash and everything. It comes down to who can win a 6-inch space of grass.
And the guy who scores it, Big Three counties down there, another South Florida kid, Jordan
6'1" boy.
Yep, and right behind Murray Smith, who's had his struggles, but that's a 305 boy. Like, yeah, man, it was the fan base. Like the fan base, I think needed this because FSU's been playing better. We've talked about that. Like, I'm a believer that this program is moving in a good direction.
Everybody needed it though. The coaching staff needed it because it buys them goodwill, and they earned it, and they deserved it, and they've put this team in this position to have some chances like this. The 0-4 start is dreadful. We've stomped on that. We've killed that horse 10 times over. Don't need to go back to it. This is a football team that started 0-4, and we're now sitting at where we're at. And they've got a shot of trying to play for bowl eligibility and actually making something of the 2021 season. Saturday afternoon into the evening was a huge part of that. But, I mean, the team deserves credit. Those guys, they battle and they fight. It's not a very good team. It's not very talented. It's got plenty of warts and plenty of issues. But those dudes compete. They play hard. They bring it every week. I mean, really, what's the worst effort FSU has had this year? Wake Forest, maybe? I mean, they played really poorly against Jacksonville State, but I think Wake is what I would say is the worst effort of FSU season in the sense of kind of having the desire throughout and not just being something where the game went poorly. But they come back and they keep doing it over and over. I think the best feeling I've had in thinking about the game over the last 36 hours since it ended, I feel like the culture is so much better here, and it shows. The way they celebrated together, the way guys act, the way guys talk about it. I mean, Jermaine Johnson is a dude that spits culture out of his mouth every second he's talking about. The way he prepares, the way he does it. Thanks for that face down. But, you know.
Just see a doctor for that.
It was what, Keir Thomas, and who was Keir with when we spoke to him on Saturday evening?
Jamie Robinson.
Yeah, think about how those two guys talked about Jermaine. Like, to me, that's what you want. You want where everybody's kind of, you know, on each other's side. And that's what FSU football feels like again.
I see the culture rear its head when Florida State is reeling. Like when it looked like they lost all momentum in that game in the third quarter when we saw Jordan Travis jog off to the locker room, especially in that moment, it looked like that team could have given up. But they don't. Even when you think they might have, it's like they come out and they make a play here or there. They never let it get completely away from them.
Yeah,
I think
that's what we're seeing. Quit is dead around these parts, thank God, because we saw too much of that in past years, and it sucked.
That's the name of the podcast, Josh. Quit is dead around here. There are two Josh's point. There are two players, and we talked about this on the Instant Pod, that your two best players, the two most important players, I should say, Jermaine Johnson and Jordan Travis, both had really big moments in this game. But as we talk about culturally, both of those guys are huge reasons why you don't give up. Like Jordan Travis's body language with FSU down 8, like he seemed to be, he was loose, he was smiling. Put that to a couple years ago when like DeAndre Francois implodes down in Miami, or when James Blackman would kind of get beat down against Miami, or any time he's losing, not even just specifically against Miami and James Blackman hitting his head and the body language is bad. Jordan Travis has elevated the performance of the offense, but also just there's this belief that he can make something happen. And that starts with him having confidence in himself that he's built. And this coaching staff has invested time with him to build that as well. And that's something that wasn't always there for Jordan. Yeah. But the way he performs and the way he carries himself, I think is infectious and gives you a chance constantly. Jermaine Johnson, 3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, that hustle play on 3rd and 4.
Played a man's game.
He did. And it just, I can't say enough good things about him. He's everything we thought he was going to be, and then some. We were talking about him being a guy who could get 7 or 8 sacks this season and do some really good things for you culturally. He's at 11. He's second nationally right now in the NCAA. But the way he handles himself in practice daily, the way he handles and carries himself in games, like FSU tried to sub him out on one of Miami's scoring drives. They tried to sub him out
before his 3rd sack, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was right. It was the play right before they did a hockey line mass sub for the defensive line because the defensive line was gassed. Both him and Keir Thomas, you talk about guys who are changing the culture potentially of this program for long term. They both waved off their subs. They said, "No, we're good. We got this." And Jermaine gets the sack. I mean, and for it to then manifest itself and turn into a win, the wins had to start coming sooner or later. Like you can only have talk about progress and growth for so long, and I'm a big proponent of like it's beyond just wins and losses, but to have that proof of concept show up on Saturday, I think it just speaks volumes to what FSU has done culturally, what Mike Norvell has done, and where the direction of this program is going. I love it. I'm excited about it.
You mentioned those two main guys. Kier was another one you mentioned. I would throw Jay Sean Corbin in there, Dylan Gibbons in there, Javonte Love Taylor in there. I think those 6 guys, some of them here for 2 years, some here for just this year so far, or only for this year, they've all been very critical in that. They all set a great tone with the way they go about their business, the way they practice, the way they handle wins versus losses the same way, the way they compliment their teammates, try to build up their teammates, the way they're willing to be leaders. Keyshawn Helton's an old standby who's been here a long time, who definitely falls in that category too. But those are newer faces around these parts who have been a massive reason for the shift of why you can have some confidence that this thing is building towards something, that the foundation has been solidly laid already, and they're working to build upon that foundation as they move forward. We're no longer in the, we're turning this thing over, we're changing everything, we're gutting it, we're done with that. That has come and gone. It's now the next phase, foundation being laid, put together some wins, become better, try to get to a bowl and make 2021 matter for something for the dudes that went out on the field and did what they did this year, and then set the tone for what it's going to be in the future as you hope to recruit better, add more talent, reassemble a roster, and turn this back into the program it's supposed to be in the ACC and on the national landscape.
All right. Great breakdown, guys, but I want to take this time to observe a moment of silence for all the Adam Fuller haters out there. They're gone. Where are they? They're all gone. We don't have any more Adam Fuller haters, do we, Brendan?
They're silent right now. I mean, the defense from where it was, where it was in 2020 to where it is now is just completely different. But even in the beginning of the season, to where it's gone, and this is even, with I thought the NC State performance was disappointing, more so with the missed tackles. There was maybe one like really bad blown assignment where coverage wasn't communicated very well. Listen, this isn't a perfect defense by any means. It's actually pretty average, maybe above average. But what I think it's done well is Adam Fuller is kind of similar to the offense. Adam Fuller has realized the strengths, the weaknesses, and knows what they can rely on. The game plan against Miami was pretty standard. They said, we have 4 guys up front that we think can beat your 5 offensive linemen, and we're just going to not allow you to take big shots in space. We're going to keep 2 safeties back. We're going to run cover 4 concepts consistently, maybe a little bit of man mixed in there. We're going to try to keep everything in front of us. And, Miami's able to expose that at times, attacking the linebackers over the middle of the field. You can't take away everything. But I think Adam Fuller has gotten guys to, one, play really well within the scheme and understand some of the pass-off concepts. He has understood the strengths of his team as the defensive line, and it puts a ton of pressure on them and allows them to make plays, and they've responded well. And they've also developed the depth there. Like Malcolm Ray becoming a guy this year is awesome. It's a really cool development.
Jackson
the play Malcolm Ray made in space is the best play he's ever made at FSU.
Yeah. So, and then, even they're still building, even the linebackers, I think are probably still the weakness of this defense. I think that's fair to say. And Amari Gaynor got exposed at times, but like Kalen DeLoach played his best game at FSU, and he played middle linebacker some of this game. I think that's a new development. I don't think he played middle linebacker a ton at any other points this season. If I'm wrong, someone can correct me there. But this defense,
it seems like I don't see as much confusion.
No, that's what the idea of passing off. Was it the Syracuse game where they really struggled with some of the pass offs and trade offs? And that was Jamie Robinson's first game.
Syracuse had a guy running across the middle free, going to the pylon,
multiple
times easily.
Multiple
and it
times.
Was, I believe Knowles got a little bit spun around, thought he was handing it off. Nobody took it. Nobody went with it. Yeah, they've been better about that.
And that still happens sometimes. It's going to happen when you're on a pattern matching scheme. And that's kind of the trade-off that you're taking there, is that you're going to try to have an answer for everything. And sometimes it's going to get exposed. That's fine. That's football. It happens. The guys are flying around. They're hustling. They're playing hard. They have the rotation of who they think works for you. The defense is working right now.
How much of it do you think is the guys playing better, like Malcolm Ray making plays that he's never made, Jarrett Jackson being a major contributor, Fabian Lovett playing like he's a future NFL defensive tackle as well? How much of it do you think is guys playing well, and how much of it do you think is just the cohesion of the unit, of the defensive coordinator, them learning his personality, them learning the scheme, them and picking up on it just over time?
I think a lot of it's that second factor, but it's also them learning each other. especially with pattern match in a secondary, having the same consistent guys out there for the most part. And obviously, like Cooper took Jones's job this week, but having the same consistent guys out there makes a massive difference with those guys, because there's just knowing that, Kevin's going to do this in this situation because this is what Kevin's done in the past in this situation, versus I'm not sure what Kevin's going to do in this situation. I think the other thing is they believe in themselves a hell of a lot more. Not to go all Ted Lasso on this, but
no, I think they believe in the coaches too. I think they believe in themselves, but I also think
there were times last year where Adam Fuller's voice rang hollow with some guys on that side of the ball, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think it was some of the guys at the top of the totem pole on that side of the ball, or at least perceived to be there. I don't think that's the case this year. But again, that comes to leadership. Jermaine Johnson, immensely impressive leader. Keir Thomas, he ain't here for no BS. He's a veteran guy who wants to be good as they can be this year. And you've got that. But we've also seen growth of other guys. Kalen DeLoach is a good example.
Yeah.
Jarvis Brownlee's a passionate dude. Like, he cares a hell of a lot about everything. He takes the good and loves it, and he takes the bad and it eats at him. But that's a good thing to have. You just need him to continue to develop.
You can win with give me 10 more Jarvis Brownlees on the field, and there may be some stuff that happens throughout the game that frustrates you, but ultimately the passion and the ability to make plays. Like, he held his own. He did a really good job against Charleston Rambo throughout the duration of the game. He's going to be remembered for that missed tackle in space. Like, okay, like, that's one play. He's going for a big hit. It was not good technique. He didn't wrap up. But
he also got beat on the comeback, right? The timing route down the sideline where it was kind of a stop and turn comeback.
Yeah, and there was a
hell of a throw by Van Dyke.
Yep. And that sometimes you're going to
Cooper was the best DB on Saturday. He was. Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about Amari Cooper. I think he deserves a couple minutes here, because he was someone coming out of the South Florida area that I thought he was solid. I saw the length. I saw some athleticism. I didn't know technically how he was going to make an impact right away. I wasn't super high on that take, and I was wrong. He's been really, really, really good. He was injured for part of preseason camp, but
if I remember correctly, Bud loved him. I think Bud was one that kind of banged the drum on him.
Bud's a Fort Myers. He pays close attention to those guys, because that's where he.
Josh, your old 239 guy down there who worked with a lot of DBs over the years, knows Team Tampa well. Did you ever talk to him about Coop?
Yeah, he loved him. I mean, I think he was on Team Tampa, or at least attended several practices with those guys. The only thing coming out of high school, he was
on the satellite
really skinny.
team.
Yeah, he was on the satellite team. But we always had a good contingent from Fort Myers because of that DB coach. He was really skinny. I mean, especially his junior year, heading into his senior year, he was really skinny. I think that was the main knock, but he was always, very lengthy and rangy. But that was the only thing holding him back. And I mean, at the time, Florida State was down. I don't know if they would have really recruited him, had they been up, but he's one of those players that had he gotten out of the state, we would have been looking back in 2 or 3 years and asking, how did he get out of the state? So I'm seeing a lot of promise out of him, especially to come in a rivalry game like this and just not flinch.
I was ultra impressed by him handling the emotions of playing the team from down home and doing well. I think Kevin Knowles got a little eaten up by those same emotions, or at least he didn't play very well. Kevin Knowles, I thought, had one of his worst games of the season. Not trying to pick on the kid, just didn't have a great day out there. He gave up a healthy amount of receptions, several yards, had an instance where he slipped, for example. It is what it is, but I thought it was interesting watching the contrast of those two guys, both young guys. Knowles with a lot more reps under his belt in actual game situations than even Cooper. And Cooper just looked so steady Eddie out there. It was unbelievable to me.
And they put a lot, like the way that Miami attacks you, there's a lot of space that Kevin Knowles has to guard. And so, he got exposed a little bit at times. But, when we go back to the communication part of the defense, and Coach AB pointed out in the chat, like Kalen DeLoach playing middle linebacker some this week, like was getting guys lined up, and like him, Kevin Knowles are two young guys who are in their first years as starters, and they communicate as well as anyone on this roster right now. And I just think that's super encouraging for the long-term prognosis of where the defense could go. It's like young guys get it. They're bought in. They see what's happening. They're putting themselves in good positions consistently to make good plays. But on Amari Cooper, like Duke King, Colonel Cooper III, as Chris likes to call him, he was awesome. He had the interception early on. Then he gets targeted. Chris, you're texting right now, and it's hurting my ears. He gets four or five passes defended as well. He gets credited for allowing a touchdown that was on the deflected Oh my God, stop texting, guys. It's killing my ears right now as I'm trying to talk about this. Stop. Oh my God. This is great for the audience. No, stop, Zach. I'm done. You're all muted too. None of you are helping at all. You're all muted. You're all distracting me. You're killing the show.
Sorry,
right now.
Norvell tweeted. We were just making sure
what
we
happened?
had
Hold on. So what happened was Mike Norvell just tweeted his bat signal that there's been a commitment. Chris wanted to make sure that we're not missing a new commitment, but at the same time that Mike Norvell tweeted out his bat signal, Bless Harris officially tweeted out his commitment note. So I guess Mike Norvell was probably just waiting for Bless Harris's blessing.
I don't
laughing.
I love it.
I brought you back in with a
know your audience.
But yeah, that's what that was. So also, if you're wondering, that bat signal is accounted for. It's not a new commitment. So anyway.
This isn't the Willie ring that never got wrong and picked up. Correct?
It was Brian Robinson, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? Welcome
to Cinephobe. Shout out to Cinephobe, best podcast out there after on the bench. All right, Amarian Cooper was good. We just talk about the offense real quick and then we get to recruiting?
Yeah.
All right. So
I want to and wrap it up. Let's talk injuries before we get to recruiting.
All right. Injuries real quick. Jordan Wilson left the game. Didn't come back in the second half. I'm not sure what the deal is there. He was tweeting afterwards, so hopefully it's nothing too serious. But he's been playing progressively better the last 3 weeks or so, and he was playing really well both as a blocker and then had a nice reception as well against Miami. And I think that really hurt FSU in the second half. Their run game kind of disappeared without him there as that extra blocker. There's just a big drop off when he's playing well between him and then to Preston Daniels. It's a tough drop off. So hopefully for FSU that he's not out for too long. The only other injury, Fabian Lovett was playing through an injury. I thought that showed he didn't play his best game, and he's someone who's played really well. He got dinged up the previous week and had been limited this week in practice. Are there any other injuries, Chris? Oh, Keyshawn Helton.
Yeah, Keyshawn tried to make a go of it. He was dressed out pregame. I think he was actually even announced as a starter on the big board, but he just couldn't go. Yeah. He's been banged up. He got in the NC State game, him and an FSU receiver got crossed up on the sideline on a play that was literally against the sideline. I believe he kind of got his leg taken out from him. Mm-hmm. I think that's what he's dealing with. Toe Philly's still banged up. That's from the last play of the Clemson game when he got kind of blown up on that fumble Ruski, punt Ruski thing FSU was trying to pull out of their hat. Those were the main ones I can think of. Emmett Rice dressed but did not play. We saw him practice a lot more last week. I think he wholeheartedly wanted to play. I think that was more a matter of he's not in quite game shape at this point. I don't know if they feel quite comfortable with it. I think they were trying to make sure he didn't play because of emotion versus physical ability to actually contribute.
And I think the only other two worth noting, one, Jordan Travis obviously left the game. He came back in. I'm not sure what exactly happened there. It seemed to be like an upper body injury.
It was a play where he got whacked on their all-out blitz on the 3rd and short, correct? Yeah. Wasn't that one that got him dinged up?
No, it was a run that he got kind of jammed up on.
Yeah, they're insinuating on the broadcast there was a hand, maybe forearm, something with an arm, but they never really knew either.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, he came back and played, so someone asked about Sidney Williams in the chat. Sidney Williams has been dealing with a lingering issue. He actually made a little bit of a progress a couple weeks ago, then had a setback. Right now he just not healthy. Jarvis Brownlee got dinged up. Saw him walking around with a boot yesterday, or Zach saw him with a boot yesterday. I mean, they put boots on guys all the time, so he finished the game. So I would imagine he's okay. Probably just going to be limited this week. I think that's everyone for injuries.
Yeah, for how physical that game was, it actually came out fairly unscathed.
Knock on wood. I do think like Dylan Gibbons played a really good game. He missed the previous week with the flu. I think him having a chance to rest, the back's been bothering him all year, back and lower body, since the Notre Dame game when he had a full body cramp. I think him having a week to kind of let his body rest really helped out, because he had pushed through that Clemson game when he probably shouldn't have been playing. He was not 100%.
I thought Javonte played his best game of the year, too. He hasn't moved around well all year. That dates back to the preseason, but I thought he turned in a good one on Saturday.
Well, let's talk about the offense and the offensive line in general, because the scheme, to me, you saw this a ton during the game, and then you kind of rewatch it, see all the things that FSU builds off of it. That little miskey toss, I think, is what Kenny Dillingham likes to call it. It's miskey. Where you're basically reading the defensive end as an option play, but it's a toss option. So if the defensive end crashes, you toss. If he kind of plays out to the toss, then Jordan Travis keeps it with pulling guards and tight ends as a power concept. That put a ton of emphasis on the guards to move around and make plays, and they did. Both Dylan Gibbons and Devontae Love-Taylor played really well, in my opinion. Probably their two best games, maybe in weeks since the beginning of the season when they were both healthier. Josh, you noticed this though, right? Like that the offense. I mean, how much of, if you had to guess, how much of the run game do you think happened off of the pitch or the moving the gaps over to the side to where it was all outside runs?
It seemed about 80% in this game. It didn't seem like they could really get it going between the tackles at all. Surprisingly, I mean, maybe that was Miami was making a concerted effort for that, but it was they were finding those their way around the ends. I mean, it seemed like they were really attacking the outside and were successful at that. And they got that 6 inches when they needed it, but they didn't.
Whoa! Hey.
they got the touchdown from the 1 yard line when they needed it.
Oh my God! There's a culture coming out of people's mouths and just a desperate need for 6 inches. Kid show. FSU had 106 yards on runs outside of the tight end, 71 yards on runs between the tackles. The difference here is FSU averaged 6.7 yards a carry when it was outside runs, 3.3 yards per carry on inside runs.
Why don't they just do outside runs?
Why do they do that all the time? Miami runs a really aggressive attacking 4-man front where kind of like what FSU wanted to do when Harlan Barnett was here before Willie made him change everything. That was great coaching and culture that they have there. That's really good job there, Willie. Keep defending that, people. Harlan Barnett wanted to have this attacking 4-man gap. Same thing you see kind of at Pittsburgh too, where you have the guy preemptively like attack a gap and you're just trying to create chaos. FSU used that to its advantage to take advantage of that over aggressiveness by Miami at times, especially from the defensive front. So that's how you're able to kind of get outside because Miami's attacking from inside out almost that way. People were like, why didn't they do that against Clemson? It was because Clemson, one, has a better defensive front and linebackers, but two, Clemson also puts a lot of pressure from outside in. So running tosses, like, it's just not something that probably is going to work very well. But FSU saw it and something they could take advantage of. They built their entire game plan around it, and they had some really cool like build-off or trade-offs off of that as well. So not only do you have the option every single play, then you mix it in with some counters and some other stuff that looks similar. But you had that play action pass to Jordan Wilson where you kind of had Miami. Did I steal your? Go ahead. It was a beautiful.
It was perfectly seen. You roll him a little bit right. It freezes the defense. It creates a zone gap. He's just sitting in it. You hit him. If Jordan was a little bit more fleet of foot, he's got 2 guys to his side that he can beat, and then he's got basically a one-on-one on top of him. It's almost like a cross, and he's in the middle of that cross where they hit him with the pass. It's great play.
And then there's another great play, and I think it was off of that concept as well, but I can't find it on the condensed game. I couldn't find it on the full game that I found on YouTube as well.
The little sidearm.
It was a little sidearm where, and I think it was built off of something similar where you're trying to get it. Was it to Corbin? Was it to Jayshon Corbin?
I don't
or was
remember
it
who he was trying to hit on it.
McDonald. But it was to anyone. It was a screen that was set up, and Jordan just puts way too much on it. And Jordan had a really nice game, especially when it mattered. But that was Miami started to counter FSU's that toss concept by being extra aggressive with its linebackers. That's how they slowed it down a little bit. The linebackers started shooting gaps.
That happened in the third quarter.
And FSU countered it with that little screenplay and just couldn't hit it. And, the point to me is that FSU still has a talent disadvantage in most games it's going to play. FSU was not the more talented team on Saturday. They played harder. They were fortunate to have turnover cluster in the first half, and they were coached better. And that may not be saying a lot because Manny Diaz coached teams haven't been particularly high functioning. But I think Mike Norvell, Kenny Dillingham, Adam Fuller have generally outcoached teams this year more often than not.
Miami went one-on-one on the outsides almost all game. A lot of times just with one on top. Once in a blue moon, they would throw 2 up top, but a lot of times it was just one deep top one, safety-wise.
And FSU tried to hit some of those one-on-ones, and they don't have the wide receivers who can consistently win one-on-ones outside.
Jordan Young's a good example of one of those.
Josh tweeted out in the game, he's like, you got Jordan Young trying to make a one-on-one play compared to Miami has Charleston Rambo. Like that's the difference right now. That's what you have to get to.
Pre-Andrew Parchment redemption story. when we were all very angry at Andrew Parchment after said route that it looked like he quit on miscommunication.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, why is he still out there? Who else is going out there?
There's just not a whole lot of
Williamson was
options.
sick all week. Keyshawn Helton's banged up and couldn't play. Jordan Young isn't a more reliable, better option. Josh Burrell's hurt. You don't really have options, So that's why he's still out there.
I don't understand how people aren't getting that at this point in the season that your options are limited. And the other season you can do better.
I should have said it more over the summer.
All right. Enough about the game. More about recruiting.
We said 5 or 6 wins. They're one away from it. Everyone's going to have to eat a ton of crow if they win one of these next 2. And I'm going to make sure you all hear about it.
Because he's the future leader of America and currently involved in the second great internet war. So we're going to hand it back to Zach and Josh to talk recruiting.
Thank you. And we're just going to get right to what the people want. And that is Marvin Jones Jr. He was on campus from Saturday morning until 5 a.m. this morning. The number 3 player at his position, the number 37 best overall. Marvin Jones Jr. probably also the biggest priority left on the recruiting board. Zach, what are you hearing on his visit to FSU?
I mean, if we're talking about the game specifically, nothing else on the visit, I think it went as well as it could have. So without the result of the game, like in play, just look at Jermaine Johnson, right? 3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, just changed the course of the game for Florida State on defense. Was making plays until that last drive, like all the way into the last drive. So that was just huge. And then obviously the result of the game, we all know how that turned out and how, impressive it was. And just like literally that last drive was coming right at the recruiting section. So they got to experience that whole, sequence right there, right in front of them. And I saw, I think it was like either AJ Duffy's video or someone in the recruit section saw Marvin Jones doing the tomahawk chop and all that stuff at the end. So just a good sign. And then the rest of the official visit just went how normal official visits go, really well. Ate a lot of food, saw a lot of things, did a lot of meetings. But the thing with Marvin is that, in my book, this is like his 3rd official visit to Florida State. He's done.
Why do you say that?
He's taken 2 other multi-day visits to Florida State. He hasn't done that at any other school. The first one, or he was at the spring game, but not really at the spring game. And then he comes in the month of June for that multi-day. And then
family.
Yeah, that was with his mom. And then at the end of July, he comes with his dad for multiple days. And that was the only school he visited in the month of July, Florida State. And then he starts taking officials. He took an official to Oklahoma at the beginning of this season, and it seemed like they got some momentum. But I really, really like where Florida State stands after this visit, and I just think that there's so much going right for Florida State right now with Marvin Jones and his whole recruitment going forward. I think he released the top 5 in Oklahoma, Alabama, Florida State, I believe.
Texas
A&M wasn't in there. Yeah. So it looks like probably the other 2 schools that will get officials are Georgia and what was the other one, Chris?
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Okay. So
the fighting Jimbos.
Yeah. So those 2 schools will probably get officials before he signs. But right now, I think this whole process has been about Florida State giving Marvin Jones Jr. a reason to come to Florida State. They hadn't done that throughout the entirety of his recruitment up to this point. They had not a great start to their season, but on his official visit weekend, they go out and beat one of their biggest rivals in Miami, and there isn't a better defensive end that's producing at any of these schools, like Jermaine Johnson. So I just think that Marvin values production. He's always told me that he values production, how he's going to be developed at the next level. And I think Jermaine's performance this season has just proven that, Coach JP, Coach Odell can do great things with their guys on the defensive line.
And he was accompanied by mom and sister, correct? Like immediately. And I believe dad was also in town for the game.
Yeah, dad was definitely in town. I never saw him directly involved in the official, but he was definitely around the coaches and things like that. So that they probably ran into each other at some point.
Very good. Let's keep it on the highlights. 5-star offensive tackle Keonta Goodwin from Charlestown, Indiana was in town. He goes 6'7", 300 pounds. He's currently committed to Kentucky, the number 5 offensive
tackle. Is he really only 300? Because I mean, he looks like supersized fridge with legs.
He's got to be closer to 400 than 300. I'm calling shenanigans.
I'm thinking like 340.
He
doesn't look sloppy.
It's not bad.
He's just a massive human being. To quote Greg Oyster, damn, that looks like a grown-ass man on the sideline when he's shooting recruit photos. So
he looks like someone who's been doing construction, like a construction worker his entire life, like a jackhammer.
All right. Well, he certainly enjoyed the visit. The story's up on Noles 24/7. We spoke to him as he exited his visit over the weekend. And there's no flip. Remains solid to Kentucky, but he is kind of open, going to take some more trips. Zach, what's the lowdown with Goodwin? Where does FSU stand, and who else is in this thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of other huge schools in this. I think Alabama's really, really trying to push for a flip. They got him on campus last weekend. He's heading to Texas A&M this coming weekend. So Florida State's definitely going to have some stiff competition if they want to land him. But I think this weekend went as good as possible, with him. And I definitely think that the early playing time is what Florida State's trying to sell, like always with elite offensive tackles and offensive linemen in general. And Alex Atkins is just doing what he does. He forms great relationships with all the recruits that he's after. But like always, it just comes down to landing guys. And Atkins has shown the ability to do that. Maybe not with as elite of a guy like Goodwin. And that's probably not a knock on Atkins. It's probably just a knock on what, Florida State's program has been for the past couple of years. But there's definitely a shot. I wouldn't predict him to Florida State. I wouldn't predict a flip at this moment, but we'll see how the next couple of weeks play out, as we got like a month until he makes his final decision.
Yeah, Goodwin, he wasn't very animated about much about the visit, except for when Alex Atkins' name came up. And he described Alex Atkins as, quote, one of the realest coaches in college football. We have a really good relationship and a chance to talk some more and develop our relationship even more. He really has a bond there. I don't know if it's going to be enough to overcome it in this short of amount of time, because he's also considering Alabama, Michigan, and Michigan State as well. Might go take another trip to one of those schools. We'll see. But I'm also hearing that NIL matters to Goodwin. And I don't know how that's going to factor into his recruitment right now. But I am told that, the NIL deals and what's out there is something he's looking at. So we'll learn more about him over the next couple of weeks, but he's definitely on the radar at this point.
Josh is asking, how committed are you out there? We're going to find out.
If you own a fridge company, he'd be a great one to use. I mean, I'm just saying.
You can lift the whole refrigerator above his head.
You literally lift it, move it, open it, and be like, I could even fit in here. This thing's so huge and spacious. I mean, perfect. I wrote you the script. There you go.
There it is. Pay us, too. On the Bench needs a sponsor.
Frigidaire brings you On the Bench.
Guys, can we talk real quick before Zach gets out of here? He puts pineapple on his pizza as like a base. Not like just like hey, I want pineapple on my pizza because I'm feeling like, something refreshing today. Did Josh go?
Josh opted out on this conversation.
No, I think my internet's a little choppy.
Oh, that's good. Thank God you're hosting the podcast with a.
He's not here for the pineapple hate.
No.
Zach's allowed to do whatever the hell he wants when he sits out on the bench for like 11 hours straight. Like, as an experienced veteran of that situation, you eat what you want, sir.
Thank you. Brendan's just a little bit childish with his, pizza topping selection.
My palate. I feel like cheese is not the best one, but if you want to get a true barometer for what a place has to offer, you don't try to hide it with
Momo's. Momo's is a Tallahassee staple. Everyone knows Momo's. Like, I'm not doing a taste test while I'm
Momo's,
sitting on the bench.
If you want to sponsor On the Bench, you can. Because I will say that
Big Meat at Momo's, is that the meat lovers one? I think it's Big Meat. That's quite fantastic. Go ahead and take that one out of context too, guys.
Chris loves Big Meat. And Josh's internet still sucks.
I think I'm better now.
He's back. Right. Is you back?
Yeah, we got a minute before Zach.
Josh just experienced the third quarter there. That's all that was. That was third quarter, early fourth quarter. But he's going to finish strong. He's going to punch us over the goal line. 2 seconds left. Zach's going to try to spike it. Pod's over.
6 inches a year or 2 ago, is going to come through.
A year or two ago, I would have thrown my headset down and just quit, but I battled through some adversity. I think the internet's better, and we're going to keep going. So tell me about Wesley Besanth. For a long time, we thought Miami was the team to beat, but what are we hearing coming out of Wesley Besanth's official visit to Florida State?
Yeah, I think I wrote in the thread of his post-visit review of the visit that I think Florida State has the best shot that they've ever had to land Wesley Besanth. I kind of, was poking around during the interview. I was basically like, or he was like, yeah, I got my decision date set for December 4th. Like, he knows he's going to make the decision then. I think it was like a week or two after he previously planned to, but he never actually set the date before. Now it's set. And I was like, do you know the team that you're going to yet? Like, do you have it in mind? He's like, maybe. And he started laughing and he was like, maybe. I definitely think
Florida State.
Yeah, I don't know. And we're sitting there with a bunch of Florida State coaches around us. So it was just a good sign. And I think I think I was talking with someone like at another site a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, this game's really going to be important because I think if Miami wins this game, he's probably just headed to Miami. With all the turmoil there, if Miami wins this game, that's 4 wins in a row for them, 2 ranked wins against a rival, and then or 4 or 5, I don't know. But they beat their rival with 2 ranked wins, and Manny Diaz kind of bringing the program back to where people expected it to be. Obviously, that's not the case. Florida State has a higher upward trajectory right now within their program, despite being 4-6 on the season. And it doesn't really look good for Manny going forward. So I think with the coaching instability, the connections at Florida State that Wesley has, we're talking about Randy Shannon, who's known, him for a long time, has the Miami connections. And then Sabbath Joseph, a defensive assistant who's super involved in Besanth's recruitment. And even Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell has always been personally tied to this recruitment, always showing Wesley that he's a huge priority. I believe we noted in June when Wesley came in that last weekend, I believe, Norvell went on the campus tour with Wesley Besanth and his family, and that was the only recruit he did that for that we'd seen all of June. So that just goes to show how much effort is going into this recruitment on FSU's side. And you can't forget Chris Marv, who's actually done a really great job in connecting with Wesley, and Besanth described him as a father figure, and just how close they've built that bond over the probably over a year now that they've started communicating. So I really like where FSU stands. He said he's probably going to take a visit to UF for the FSU game in 2 weeks, that Thanksgiving weekend, and then he'll make the decision the following week, December 4th. So I really, really like Florida State's chances with the instability at UF and Miami, and I really don't see him going out of state to, I think, his other 2 finalists, which are Penn State and West Virginia.
Okay, great. You got to get to class?
Yeah, I'll see you guys.
All right, see ya. We're gonna continue to run down these official visitors. There'll be a recruiting scoop up on Knowles 24/7 later with more details and updates, but I just want to cover the rest of the 9 official visitors. So let's go with Javonte Barnes, Chris, out of Las Vegas. He's a 4-star running back. He goes 6 foot, 190 pounds. He was on campus beginning on Saturday. He stayed through Sunday. I think Javonte Barnes is going to come down to 2 teams. I think it's going to be Oklahoma or Florida State. I think Alabama is also heavily involved and right there. But I think the key to this recruitment is going to come next week when Barnes takes his official to Oklahoma. The Sooners lost this weekend, didn't they? To Baylor.
Correct, to Baylor. Yes.
So I don't know who they got. It's probably a big game because we're nearing the end of the season. But he'll be in town. He'll be in Norman, Oklahoma this weekend. And I think he's going to take another visit or 2. We're not expecting Barnes to make an official announcement until the Under Armour game in January. He's going to be an early enrollee. He'll probably sign somewhere in December, but not make his announcement until the Under Armour game. I know that UNC, Miami, and USC are battling for these final 2 visits, but I really think it's going to come down to OU and FSU. I think this weekend and next weekend are the 2 keys to his recruitment. I don't know. Right now, maybe I give the edge to OU. I know the sources I speak to at FSU are very confident or very optimistic. I wouldn't say confident yet. I would say they're optimistic in FSU's chances to land Barnes. There was also another running back on campus, Katron Allen, a 4-star back from IMG Academy who's currently committed to Penn State. Florida State was involved with Kentron throughout the spring. They got him on campus in June on an unofficial, and they wanted to bring him back on an official visit in either late June or the end of July when it was back open. And it didn't happen because he committed to Penn State in between and kind of shut things down for a while. FSU remained in contact with him. They were able to get him up on an official visit. Having talked to him briefly, I don't think this is going to be a situation where FSU flips him down the stretch. I think he remains committed to Penn State. I think there's some interest in FSU, but ultimately, for whatever it is, I don't think that Florida State has a great shot at flipping Katron Allen based on the people that I talked to coming out of the visit. I think on the offensive side of the ball, if you say, okay, who are we going to land between now and signing day on the offensive side of the ball? I think the 2 most likely candidates are Kevin Coleman, 4-star wide receiver Kevin Coleman, and 4-star running back Javonte Barnes. I think if FSU is going to add anybody, and of course they're going to go into the portal and they're probably going to get some wide receivers and some weapons from there. But in terms of who do I think FSU could land, I think it's probably just those 2. I think those are the guys with the most realistic chance of ending up in this class between now and signing day. I know that Camden Brown was on campus. He's a St. Thomas Aquinas 3-star wide receiver. I believe FSU offered him about a month ago. I think it was like October 19th or 20th. They offered him. So they got in a little late. Camden Brown is committed to Pitt, and he was on campus, but his visit only lasted about 24 hours. He arrived on Saturday morning, mid-morning, almost noon, and departed FSU's campus the following day at noon. I don't know how much FSU is going to push there. I just kind of feel like I don't want to say he's not a priority, but I just don't feel like there's going to be a significant effort to flip him from his commitment to Pitt down the stretch. So I even though he was on campus this weekend, he's not one of those guys that I'm going to be really tracking beyond this weekend. Anything you want to chime in? Yeah,
real
go
quick
ahead.
there. I was just there when Zach was interviewing Camden, and I was trying to keep an eye out on other stuff. I was giving help for an hour. You can tell, like I know you guys know from all the time you spend on the bench, like when someone comes off of a visit and there's either a huge push for him or he's thinking about flipping, like there's a certain energy and
kind of like how I feel about Katron Allen. Like nothing bad happened, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's how it did not. Maybe completely misreading it. It just didn't feel like there was a lot of energy on his side that something was going to change in his recruitment based on this visit. It didn't feel like the way FSU was sending him off that something crazy was going to happen either. It just felt like it was just an official visit and nothing remarkable. That's how I took it.
Yeah, and when I'm talking about offensive targets remaining, I mean skill guys. I meant like running back, tight end, wide receiver. Obviously, on the offensive line, they're pushing for Goodwin, they're pushing for Armella, they're pushing for a bunch of guys, and they would take more. But when it comes to skill offensive guys, I think Kevin Coleman and Javonte Barnes are probably going to be the 2 main guys that we talk about between now and December.
I agree with that. Coleman was at Oregon this past weekend for his official there. On Barnes, they've been consistent with him. That's been a constant recruitment. Kenny Dillingham leading the charge there. They clearly like him. I think they value him the most of any running back that they've pursued consistently here for the last several months in this class. But yeah, I agree with Josh on that assessment of the board. Camden, it's one of those interesting ones. I think if you get in a pickle and you don't think there's a better option, maybe that's where you go and you push and you think you can flip it because it's in-state and all that stuff. But I think they're looking for pro potential wide receivers, and that incorporates a lot of what they're going to look for in the portal. So I think that's one of those things where they're going to be assessing the portal in real time, and that kind of changes the board in real time.
Okay. flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. I think there's two more official visitors we need to recap. One of them was Carlos Nicholson, and he's the number one JUCO corner in the country. Really intriguing prospect. Played safety and quarterback prior to switching to cornerback. 6'3", 200 pounds. He's currently committed to Kentucky, but I think FSU has a really good shot at flipping him. He's going to official visit Mississippi State on December 10. And then I think it's going to come down to FSU, Mississippi State, or Kentucky when he makes his ultimate decision in December. He was hosted by Jerry and Jones. What's that?
You don't think Old Miss is in there?
I don't. Yeah, sure.
He was there like a week or two ago, I know.
Right.
And I know they're trying to get an official too before I think the Mississippi State one. So I know they're kicking the tires trying to get.
They're involved. Yeah, they're involved. Absolutely. So it's going to come down to a Mississippi school, Kentucky, or FSU. And I don't think he's completely locked into Kentucky. I think that there's, of all the committed guys that came on campus, maybe Carlos Nicholson is the one that could be flipped the easiest from that commitment. But I do think the Mississippi schools are a major threat, obviously. So we'll see how that goes. But Jerry and Jones hosted him. He's a guy that transferred to FSU from Mississippi State. So I really, I think that is significant, a good matchup for the host. But we'll see what he does. Final decision will come on early signing day. Kamari Wilson, IMG Academy 5-star safety, was on campus. And I'll make it quick with him. I've always thought he was kind of a long shot. You'd agree, right, Chris? Kamari?
Yeah, I've always felt it was Georgia.
Always felt it was Georgia. Same here. But he said in the interview something that, if holds true, I will take FSU much more serious. He said that he intends to return to FSU before early signing day. And obviously that would be on his own dime. It's a 5-hour trip from IMG. If Kamari Wilson makes it back to FSU's campus, if it holds true, then I will take this recruitment a lot more serious. Chris?
I agree. I mean, Josh Newberg once said, follow the visits. But no, I agree with you on Wilson. But I'm, you know me, I'm stubborn. When I kind of get my mind set on a kid going to a certain school and it lasts for so long, it takes a heck of a lot for me to move off of that. And with him, Georgia is certainly that school for me.
Okay. And another visit that was not official, but it was treated kind of like an official, was Earl Little Jr., the 4-star cornerback from St. Thomas Aquinas. And Earl Little Jr. was up in Tallahassee again with his dad, and he stayed all the way through Sunday, which was another extended trip for Earl Little. There's a lot of optimism, and I get it, but my message here isn't going to change much with Earl Little. As long as he's a take for Alabama, which I've confirmed he still is, and Alabama still has room, which they do, I think Earl Little Jr. is going to Alabama. I think he really loves FSU. I think his family loves FSU. They love the city of Tallahassee. But I think when it comes to making a decision this recruiting cycle, I'm still going with Alabama for Earl Little Jr. Am I missing something here, Chris? Do you disagree?
I don't think so. So the interesting domino effect is Bama, Dominique Jackson. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I've not dealt with the young man. 5-star cornerback from Cali, decommitted from USC. Everybody expects him to end up with Alabama. So people are thinking, oh, Jackson commits there, that fills up. Here's what Alabama site literally wrote, I think today or yesterday, or Hank wrote it over there, Hank Self. Earl Little Jr. Alabama has been and remains the heavy favorite for Little Jr. He'll make an announcement on early signing day. Most would be shocked if it were not the Crimson Tide. Let me just let you in on a clue. Our Alabama site, they don't miss a whole lot. So,
and if it is a shocking scenario where it's not Alabama, it's going to be Florida State.
Yes, I agree. FSU is wholeheartedly in the bridesmaid scenario here.
Yeah. And this is just a situation, unfortunately, where FSU just has to wait. And if it falls in their lap, it falls in their lap. And if it doesn't, I mean, it's Alabama.
And that's what FSU has to do with some elite type level talents. And Earl's an elite level type talent. You position yourself as well as you possibly can, and you stay in the race if you think you have a legitimate shot in the race. And they do that. I think they're very good at evaluating themselves within recruitment and how they go about doing things. FSU is not holding a spot only for Earl Little and not taking an DB. Earl Little is one of those dudes, if he wants in, he's coming. Like, you know, it doesn't matter what the board looks like, how many they have. If they filled their spots, doesn't matter. Earl Little is that kind of talent, and FSU knows that.
All right. I think that's all for the official visitors. like I said, if you're looking for more recruiting information, we have a ton of it up on Noles 24/7, and we're going to have more as the day goes on. I guess we could cover notable no-shows. I got 3 guys I want to talk about that were notable no-shows, and they were Tyree West, Sam McCall, and Nigel Kelly. Tyree West is the defensive tackle that gets talked about every single day on the Florida State message board, and he's a big-time prospect. I don't know why he gets talked about so much on the FSU boards, though. He has been to Florida State one time. He was in town for about 3 hours during the month of June. We've heard a half dozen times that he's expected back, but he's never shown up. So to this point, can we take him off the recruiting board?
I don't think we can take him off. As long as we know they're still communicating and involved, I don't think we can take him off because the possibility always exists. Man, Newberg just rolled his eyes at me. It hurts.
We talk about him every day. He's been on campus for 3 hours.
He is talked about way too much.
2021.
He is talked about way too much. I wholeheartedly agree with you there. But I still think that's one of those rabbits in the hat they might try to pull out.
Okay, fair enough. Sam McCall wasn't there, but we got no concerns over Sam.
No.
He wasn't.
Played a playoff game Friday night. They won. I think it pertained to that as part of the reason he wasn't able to come.
All right. Nigel Kelly wasn't there. And to me, this was significant because I don't think that Miami or FSU are at the top of his list right now. When Zach reached out for comment, he said he hadn't watched the game. Right now, I'd probably look to Oregon or Georgia or Clemson. Like if Georgia or Clemson heats it up and makes a run at him late, I think he could end up there. But if I had to guess, and I'm not prepared to put in a crystal ball pick for Oregon, but maybe I'd lean toward Oregon right now. I've never felt good about Nigel since he decommitted. I know he told some reporter that FSU was still his number 1 when he decommitted, and Florida State fans held on to that dearly. But I think FSU is kind of at an arm's reach for Nigel throughout the summer, throughout the fall. Now he doesn't show up for the FSU game, doesn't watch it. I'm not very optimistic that FSU is going to be able to regain his commitment. Am I crazy, Chris?
No, you're not crazy. I definitely think Oregon's currently the pace car. I also think Kelly absolutely loves recruiting. So, I'm not sweating that one. That's the epitome of South Florida recruitment where the decision, I think, is going to be made in the 72 hours leading up to when ink actually hits paper.
Yeah, and if it's
I think there's going to be twists and turns along the way to that point.
If FSU can get him on campus on December 10th, everything I said is out the window.
Yep,
he's one of those prospects that, like you said, loves the recruiting process, and I could absolutely see him making a reactionary decision down the stretch on where he's going to end up. And to be honest, it really doesn't matter where he ends up because he's such a great player. I think he's going to be fine wherever, and maybe that's why he kind of handles his recruitment in that way.
Good talk.
Antavious Woody was back on campus. We already covered that. I don't think there's anything else I really want to talk about or need to get off my chest when it comes to recruiting. Brendan, am I missing anything from an overview perspective? Anybody we didn't talk about? I think that's about it.
Where was Travis Hunter this weekend? Did we talk about that?
He was in the stands doing the chop.
Guys, I've been telling you all along, there's nothing to worry about. You panic for nothing. Who cares if he goes to Georgia to get a pair of shoes? He's all no. Everyone just needs to relax.
Should just listen to you from the get-go. All right. Is that it? We good?
Should I talk basketball?
No, we got to get out of here. You had your basketball time to drive to Gainesville and back yesterday.
It was not fun. There's my summary of that game. Not fun.
All right.
It got away.
I got some personal news. I want to say it's been about a month since my last regular scheduled haircut. So I'm on here to let you guys know I'm growing it out.
It's back.
I'm growing it out.
How long? Are we talking about Willie Taggart not getting a quarterback long, or
we'll just have to see how it goes. But I can tell you, I've been doing the 2 on top down to a 0 shaved head for 8 or 9 months, and it was a nice reprieve from the long hair. But I'm bringing it back.
I'm growing the beard for bowl eligibility.
My barber is not able to get me in for at least 2.5 more weeks, so this is going to be a mess coming up.
You're going to look like a scrub.
I don't want no scrub. A scrub.
Good job, guys.
Speaking of scrub, FSU 31, Manny Diaz 28.
Thank you for listening to On the Bench. For Zach Blostein, for Brendan Sonnone, for Chris Nee, I am Josh Newberg. We'll be back later this week.